Hello, I'm answering the questions about my creed, and we'll start with part one and basically section one of part one, which is what are the beliefs that guide my actions? I have two beliefs, which the first one being commit to your values. Don't be a hypocrite or otherwise have your values only apply when it's convenient to you, and that can be on both sides of the issue at hand. The second belief I have is don't ask a loaded question, or otherwise don't ask a question if the answer does not ultimately affect the outcome. There have been many times where I have been asked a question, I've had to put my foot down saying something along the lines of, well, why did you ask me the question in the first place if you're going to talk over me before I even finish answering? The second section of what is my creed is what direction am I going in? And my ultimate goal is to have my passive income equal my salaried income. This gives me a fighting chance at retirement and gives me the possibility of generating even more wealth after I stop working. Any other investments I have is just icing on the cake. Now, the third section of what is my creed is what are the principles that influence how I live and work and what guides me? There are three principles here. The first, there are two principles. The third one is a kind of a synergy between the two principles. The first one is manage confidence. Now, this principle or value used to be honesty, but the civilian world has taught me that honesty is a little bit of a fairy tale. There is no distinction between a confidence man or a con artist and a salesman. I must be careful of who I give my confidence to, lest I trust somebody who is ultimately untrustworthy. I also must assess if I truly have somebody else's confidence. Otherwise, I try to influence someone who does not trust me. And the second principle is that if I can't do something better than 50% of the population, then I am better off paying somebody else to do it. This is especially important to my job because if I can't perform above average, well, one, I shouldn't be doing my job in the first place, like things that I'm actually getting paid for, but I'll never be able to promote either. And now the synergy of the two is if I both can do something better than 50% of the population, I also must be agreeable and charismatic and manage other people's confidence. That's the synergistic effect in order to be an effective leader. To answer the fourth section of what is my creed, what are my opinions on how I live and work? I really have only two opinions. Do your job and don't make excuses about doing your job. And the second part of that is be curious enough about the job of the person above you so that you can eventually do their job if you want to promote. Section 5 of what is my creed, what is my ideology? I like to operate off of intent, so I like to give intent and I like to receive intent so that we have ultimate alignment and we can minimize communication. Otherwise, if there's micromanagement involved, there's a removal of somebody's agency to actually perform the job at hand, and to me, that's kind of a form of enslavement. This ideology ultimately comes from how I've been divorced, where somebody can make a unilateral decision that ultimately affects every facet of my life and vice versa. This also guides into the belief about asking a loaded question that doesn't ultimately affect the outcome, where, again, I view that as a form of enslavement. Onto the sixth section of what is my creed, what is my philosophy? And I prefer to quantify what I qualify. While I understand people have different communication styles and incentives, I do not respond well to somebody prefacing a major decision with the words, I feel like. The numbers may be imperfect or horribly biased, but at least I prefer that people try to ground their decisions in reality. So let's move on to part 2 and what defines me. I would say money defines me. Money gives me the freedom to choose who I must interact with. I want people to know that there's a price to everything. If someone is unwilling to do something, it's because the price or other incentives or total compensation is just not correctly aligned. We can start a conversation on, many people have a hill to die on, but people often don't ask, well, what is the price to that hill, to dying on that hill? And to that end, friendships also have a price. If there is no mutuality, there's no monetary or time investment from one of the parties, then it's a waste of time and money to continue that friendship. To answer part 3, what do I want my legacy to be? My legacy is going to be generational wealth. Now, that generational wealth does not necessarily lie in money. It also lies in passing along the values I've previously spoken about, with the general theme that nothing is nor should be handed to you. Ideally, there will be a balance between my work and family so I can pass on said values. I shouldn't be slaving away at my job for 80 hours a week and neglecting my family. The balance comes also with how money is spent. My children should not be spoiled, nor should they be living in abject poverty. Money can ultimately buy everything, and anyone that says otherwise is lying. Most importantly, money can buy back your own time. Otherwise, you're selling your time to get for money. And to conclude on part 4, culminating all parts 1 through 3, what are my non-negotiables for being a leader in business? Be self-aware is my first non-negotiable. Don't lie to me, and especially don't lie to yourself. I often hear I'm doing my best or I'm trying, but in reality, you haven't looked at a different angle to the problem. You could similarly say I'm accepting mediocrity in this particular space, but I can excel in other spaces, and that's ultimately something that's an honest statement. And one of my other non-negotiables is deliver accurate information, because misinformation is often more dangerous than the lack of information. There's a lot of power in saying I don't know and opting not to lead somebody down the rabbit hole that just ultimately wastes their time. This is a tie-in with self-awareness noted above and a degree of ownership. The dangerous thing about being confident in a course of action when there really is no business in having that confidence is the tendency to overpromise and underperform. And you can see that in younger people, myself being young at one point in time, where I often fill in gaps of silence when I don't know an answer with just rubbish information. So I always advise myself to take some time to give an accurate answer and not misinform, and advise those that are working with me to take some time and give an accurate answer. Thank you.